The Haunting of Blackwood Manor. Blackwood Manor had been abandoned for years, its grandeur and beauty long forgotten by the townspeople who lived nearby. The old Victorian mansion had fallen into disrepair, its once gleaming white facade now covered in a thick layer of dust and grime. But despite its dilapidated state, there was something about Blackwood Manor that drew people in. Rumors had circulated for years about the strange occurrences that took place within its walls, and the locals whispered that the mansion was haunted by the ghosts of its former inhabitants. One summer, a group of curious teenagers decided to explore the abandoned mansion. They had heard the stories, and were eager to uncover the secrets of Blackwood Manor for themselves. As they made their way through the crumbling mansion, they felt a sense of unease wash over them. The air was thick and musty, and strange shadows flickered on the walls. But despite their fear, they pushed on, determined to uncover the truth. As they descended into the basement of the mansion, they stumbled upon an old diary, hidden away in a dusty corner. The diary belonged to a former resident of Blackwood Manor, and as they read the words written on its pages, they felt their blood run cold. The diary chronicled the life of a woman named Isabella, who had lived in the mansion in the late 1800s. Isabella had been tormented by the spirits that haunted the house, and she had recorded her experiences in the diary in the hopes that someone would one day find it and put an end to the curse. As the teenagers read on, they began to feel a strange presence in the room. It was as if the spirits that had haunted the mansion for so long had been awakened by their presence. And then, all at once, the room went dark. The teenagers tried to flee, but they found that they were trapped. The doors and windows had all been sealed shut, and they were alone with the ghosts of Blackwood Manor. For days, they were held captive in the mansion, tormented by the spirits that haunted its halls. They saw things that they could not explain, and they felt the icy breath of ghosts on the backs of their necks. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they were released. The doors and windows opened on their own, and they stumbled out of the mansion, shaken and changed forever. Years later, the townspeople would still whisper about the haunting of Blackwood Manor. They would tell stories of the teenagers who had dared to explore its walls and of the horrors that they had faced. And they would warn their children never to venture too close to the old mansion, lest they too fall victim to the curse that still lingered within its walls.
The teenagers who had survived the haunting of Blackwood Manor were never the same. They had seen and experienced things that were beyond explanation, and the trauma of their experience had left a lasting impact on them. One of the teenagers, a girl named Emily, had been particularly affected by the events at Blackwood Manor. She had always been an outgoing and vibrant young woman, but after the haunting, she became withdrawn and quiet, as if the experience had taken away a piece of her soul. Despite her struggles, Emily tried to move on with her life. She went to college, got a job, and even got married. But no matter where she went or what she did, she could never shake the memories of Blackwood Manor. One day, years after the haunting, Emily received a strange package in the mail. It was a small box wrapped in brown paper with no return address. Inside the box was a single item, the old diary that the teenagers had discovered in the basement of Blackwood Manor. Emily was horrified. She had thought that the diary had been lost or destroyed, but here it was, in her hands once again. As she began to read its pages, she felt a sense of dread wash over her. The diary was different now. The words on the pages had changed, as if they had been written by a different hand. And the entries were no longer about Isabella, but about Emily herself. The diary chronicled every moment of Emily's life since the haunting of Blackwood Manor. It was as if the spirits that had haunted the mansion had been watching her all along, waiting for the right moment to strike. Emily tried to ignore the diary, but its presence weighed on her like a leaden weight. She couldn't escape the feeling that something was watching her, that something was waiting for her to slip up so that it could strike again. And then, one night, as she lay in bed, Emily felt a cold, clammy hand wrap around her ankle. She tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat as she saw the ghostly figure standing at the foot of her bed. The haunting of Blackwood Manor had followed Emily home, and there was no escaping its grasp. She had unlocked the curse, and now she would pay the price for her curiosity. The story of Blackwood Manor and the haunting that followed Emily would be told for generations to come. It would become a cautionary tale, warning people of the dangers of exploring the unknown and tempting fate. And as the years passed, the old mansion would continue to stand, a silent witness to the horrors that had taken place within its walls. The ghosts of its former inhabitants would continue to roam its halls, waiting for their next victim to come along and unlock the curse once again. As the years went by, more and more people became fascinated by the story of Blackwood Manor and its haunting. Tourists would often stop by the old mansion, hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghosts that were said to inhabit it. But those who dared to enter the mansion never returned. They would disappear without a trace, leaving behind only their footsteps in the dust and a feeling of dread that hung in the air like a thick fog. Eventually, the authorities deemed the mansion too dangerous to be left standing. They erected a chain-link fence around it and posted "No trespassing" signs on every side. But the mansion continued to draw people in, despite the warnings. Thrill-seekers and ghost hunters would sneak in under the cover of darkness, hoping to capture evidence of the ghosts that were said to reside within. One such group of ghost hunters was a team of paranormal investigators who were determined to uncover the truth about Blackwood Manor. They had heard the stories of the mansion's haunting, and they believed that they could finally put the mystery to rest. They arrived at the mansion on a cold and foggy night, armed with all sorts of equipment: EMF detectors, night vision cameras, and voice recorders. They made their way through the overgrown gardens and eventually found a way inside the mansion. As they made their way through the dark and musty halls, they began to pick up strange readings on their equipment. They heard whispers in the darkness and felt cold spots that seemed to move around the room. But they were not prepared for what they found in the basement. There, in a dark corner of the basement, they found a room that had been hidden behind a brick wall. Inside the room were strange symbols etched into the walls, and a feeling of darkness and malevolence that seemed to emanate from every corner. And in the center of the room was a single object, a small, ornate box that seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. The investigators were mesmerized by the box, and they reached out to touch it. But as soon as they made contact, the world around them began to spin and twist. They felt as if they were falling into a void, and then everything went black. When they woke up, they were outside the mansion, lying on the ground. They had no memory of what had happened inside, but they knew that something had changed. They returned to their lab and analyzed the data from their equipment. What they found shocked them to the core. The box had unleashed a wave of dark energy that had scrambled their equipment and erased their memories. They knew then that the mystery of Blackwood Manor would never be solved. The mansion and its haunting would continue to haunt the imagination of people for generations to come, a reminder of the dangers that lay in the unknown and the mysteries that would never be solved. The team of paranormal investigators tried to warn others of the danger lurking within Blackwood Manor, but their story was dismissed as a hoax or the ramblings of a group of thrill-seekers. Years went by, and the mansion fell into further disrepair. The chain-link fence surrounding it began to rust and decay, and the "no trespassing" signs were torn down or defaced. And yet, despite the dangers and warnings, people continued to venture into the mansion. Some were curious teenagers, eager to test their courage against the legends of the haunting. Others were more serious ghost hunters, hoping to uncover the truth behind the mystery of Blackwood Manor. But none of them ever returned. The mansion became known as a cursed place, a magnet for darkness and evil. Its reputation spread far and wide, and people began to whisper that it was a portal to the realm of the dead, a gateway to hell itself. And then, one dark and stormy night, a group of young adventurers arrived at the mansion. They were a diverse group, brought together by a shared love of the macabre and the supernatural. They knew the dangers of Blackwood Manor, but they were undeterred. They had come prepared with all sorts of equipment: cameras, EMF detectors, and even holy water and salt. They made their way through the overgrown gardens and into the mansion, their hearts pounding with excitement and fear. As they made their way through the dark and decaying halls, they heard strange noises, whispers, and footsteps that seemed to follow them wherever they went. They explored the mansion from top to bottom, uncovering hidden passages and secret rooms. They found evidence of the mansion's dark history: diaries and journals of the former residents, detailing the strange and terrifying events that had taken place within its walls. But then, they found something even more terrifying. In the basement, they discovered a strange altar, adorned with strange symbols and surrounded by flickering candles. And at the center of the altar was a small, ornate box that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. As they approached the box, they felt a sense of dread wash over them. They knew that this was the source of the evil that had plagued the mansion for so long. But before they could do anything, the darkness descended upon them. They felt as if they were being pulled into a void, a world of darkness and pain. They saw visions of unspeakable horror and heard the screams of the damned. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. They found themselves outside the mansion, lying on the ground. They were battered and bruised, but alive. But something had changed within them. They had been marked by the darkness, forever tainted by the evil of Blackwood Manor. And they knew that they could never escape the curse of the mansion.